And welcome everyone to this edition of Quarantine Q&A. It's presented by Alabama One. This is Roger Hoover with the Crimson Tide Sports Network and Alabama One Credit Union. They've been voted Tuscaloosa's best credit union and mortgage lender. Alabama One offers low-rate auto, mortgage, and business loans, plus protection for it all with Alabama One Insurance. You can visit any of their 9 local branches or check them out online at alabama1.org. Alabama One, a proud supporter of Crimson Tide Athletics. And today on Quarantine Q&A, we are joined by the Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. And Greg, first of all, great to see you. Roll Tide. How's everything going?
I'm doing good. Roll Tide to you too, Roger. Thanks for having me on.
Certainly glad to have you with us, and we'll start very broad. We'll get a little more narrow as we go along, but in the last 2 months, without a sporting event for the University of Alabama due to the COVID-19 pandemic, what has it been like for you leading this program?
Well, there's certainly no manual for it, just like there isn't for really anybody else in most positions. It was interesting. I was talking to Regina, my wife, and when we came back from Nashville after all this kind of happened, and she said, "Man, we're going to have some free time." I said, "Well, I think so, because we're used to this time of year being, this is actually, the spring is the busiest time of year for us because you have baseball, softball, a lot of events, tennis, a lot of events. You have a ton of spring meetings, both SEC and nationally. We have, commencement on campus. And so literally you kind of get to the middle or end of June, hopefully. And, the goal is to get to Omaha in baseball. So we want to be busy all the way till the end of June, 1st of July. And then you kind of catch your breath in July and get going for the next year. Well, it's amazing. I actually have found that my days are almost more full than what they normally are, just because the constant meetings. When you have 650 student athletes, you have 350 employees. Obviously, we're part of the university and that side of it, and then on top of that, a number of national things that we're involved with. So it's pretty much nonstop throughout the day. And now I am at home at night, which is really nice. I've probably spent more time with Regina in the last 8 weeks than I have maybe, in a lot of ways. It's their 26th anniversary tomorrow. So in some ways, and thank you. In a 2 month period, I've spent more time with her than any 2 month period in our 26 years. That's for sure. And we're still speaking to each other and getting along. She hasn't kicked me out of the house yet. So that's a good thing. And I'm going to try to keep it that way.
That's certainly good to hear, and congratulations once again. So with that, you're kind of adjusting to a new normal, and how much of your day right now is spent in front of a computer screen and doing a lot of online meetings and things like that?
Pretty much the whole day. Very little face-to-face interaction. There's a few of us that are back at the office now, a small percentage of our department, and which is kind of the way it is on the campus as a whole. And so even within the walls of Malmore, we still do a lot of meetings virtually, to where, some are at home, some are here. So, Jay Batt, for instance, from our staff is literally about probably 20 yards from me right now. And I think I've seen him once today. And we both had masks on and trying to make sure we're social distancing and doing things the right way. We have very, very strict protocols about this and how we're doing it. Everybody that comes in is getting their temperature checked every day. We're trying to make sure we are doing everything we can to do the right things here at Alabama Athletics.
Wearing a mask is really important right now in our society, and a lot of people have probably been wondering, all right, I'll always show my Crimson Tide pride with a t-shirt or a hoodie or jacket, something like that. And now that's extending to mask, and even the mask that Alabama is using can help our student athletes.
Yeah, it's been an interesting debate. One of the things that we try really hard here is to stay out of politics, or to stay, we're one of the uniters that brings people together, and we want to make sure we recognize that. Roger, I can tell you I'm the farthest thing from a medical expert, okay? However, I can tell you every day I've been trying to do a lot of reading, and I try to do balanced reading, to where listen to different sides, listen to different opinions, obviously rely heavily on what the medical experts have to say. But it's been interesting, and one of the things that you look at the countries who maybe have lower death rates than what we have here in the United States, that have, and you base off a percentage of population, all of those things, maybe don't have as many cases of COVID-19 based off of per capita. You look and see who's doing testing at per capita and try to understand all those things. One of the things that's been interesting to see is the folks who have used masks as a regular, very diligent part of what they do. Their numbers are pretty good, and so I think we have an opportunity. Everything that Coach Saban and I have talked about, Greg Sankey, my peers in the league from an AD standpoint, is what can we do to give us the best chance to get to September, have a fall sports season. The importance of that for our student athletes, they want to be here, they want to be competing, okay? But we need to make sure it's safe. What that's good for our department and our coaches, our staff. It's good for our fan base. It's good for our community. All those people together doing this in a safe manner has to be the driving force. But what can we do to make that happen? And I think masks are one of them. And again, maybe this isn't exactly accurate. Okay, I'm not claiming that this is 100% accurate, but a couple different medical papers I've read, a couple of different very reputable articles that I've read, has a death rate in Japan about 2 to 3% of what it is in a lot of other parts of the world, including the United States. What are they doing? Well, they're wearing masks everywhere they go. And I think one of the things is the reality is, percentage-wise, it's a very small part of the younger generation that has significant health issues from this. There's no doubt that it's something that affects our older generations more so. However, the young people can still spread it, right? It's being asymptomatic and all those different things. Well, if it reduces transmission by over 90%, if it lowers the death rate, those are all good things I think we can pay attention to. And so what can we do to where everybody feels like, hey, this is something I can do and I can be a part of, and that gives us the best chance to get to a fall sports season. That gives us a great chance to get our student athletes back on campus. That gives us a great chance to have our student body back on campus. But that's each and every one of us trying to do our part. And actually, I've done a few different tweets, and I actually lost track of professional wrestling when I was leaving high school, and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and Andre the Giant. Those were my wrestling names I learned. But then I found out Steve Austin, which when I was a kid, Steve Austin was the $6 million man. He wasn't a wrestler. So the wrestler Steve Austin was out today. I guess he has a beer business, and he's out delivering beer in Los Angeles. He's got 4 million followers on Twitter, and he tweeted a picture of him wearing an Alabama mask today. So I retweeted that and tried to have some fun, and we've actually got our own Alabama masks that are about ready to go to retail. I got one right here as display. So you can easily show your allegiance to who it is, and we're actually going to be having these hit the web here pretty soon. And I can tell you, I've tried a lot of different masks. This is a good one, and it's something that's pretty easy to use. So I'm sure Regina has said when I wear the mask that I've never looked better. So I try not to take that personally, but at the same time, too, we're trying to do the responsible thing here, and each and every one of us has that opportunity. And I'm the only one in the office right now, so when that's the case, we don't wear them. But when we bring other people in, we make sure everybody's doing that right now.
Certainly like to see that. Certainly hope that Crimson Tide fans will take advantage of that. Has Steve Austin replied back to you saying that he will take you up on your offer to attend a football game with him this year?
I haven't seen. I haven't been able to look at Twitter since I sent that out this morning, so no idea the response to it. But it'll be. I looked. I was like, God, I think I've seen that guy before. And then I saw he had 4 million followers. And Matt Self, our compliance guy, is our resident professional wrestling expert. And so my days is the way it's gone. I haven't had time to reach out to him yet, but I can't wait to get the full report from Matt that what's happened from that. Let him know that Steve Austin is an Alabama fan. You know who did text me though is Chris Stewart, and it was a great text that he had tonight. Chris is kind of has that Dudley Do-Right image and All-American boy image, and Chris is a big wrestling fan. Who would have thunk? But I learned that through what Twitter provided us today.
Oh, yeah, he quotes wrestling all the time on our Crimson Tide Sports Network broadcast. Going back to what you talked about earlier about all of the Zoom meetings you've been a part of, I know one of the things you have done as well is you dropped in on some team meetings. Just what's the team communication been like? What have you seen from Alabama coaches and players during this time? Yeah,
our coach has done a wonderful job of talking to our kids. We have 21 teams. We have 650 student athletes, I'm 48 years old, and I still feel like I'm 23 years old just from getting to be around all these young people on a daily basis. I had a Zoom meeting with one-on-one with one of the young women from our soccer team today, just to talk to her about her career. She just got an internship that she's really excited about, and talking about what that practice looks like. And so it's something that, been doing some individuals, talked to our student athletic advisory committee, talked to a lot of our teams. Haven't been able to get to everyone, but quite a few of them, and just trying to engage. Right now, I think, Roger, people are looking for hope, right? They're looking for, there's obviously some very challenging and scary things that we're dealing with, whether it's a health standpoint, economic standpoint, mental health. I think that the domino effect from this is significant. And so what can we do to help serve everybody during this time is so critical. And part of that, a big part of that is our student athletes. Obviously, we want them to survive this academically. We want them to survive this athletically. We want them to survive this socially. And we know if we do those things right, that gives us the best opportunity for all of us to get back together soon. And that's a lot of what we've been trying to do. We've only had one all staff meeting. Had it a few weeks ago. We got another one next Monday. And, I thought about this and just kind of the last moment before we went to all staff meeting, I was here in the office. And basically it was just like literally three of us in the office at that time. And I decided to go to our football team meeting room, which is our biggest meeting area other than Coleman Coliseum. And I went in there and decided to have the empty staff room behind me as my backdrop, and just try to encourage them and say, guys, this isn't what we want to see. Let's do everything we can to put ourselves in the position so we can all get back here together. But that's going to take diligence on every one of our behalfs to make it happen.
And speaking of health, as regards to COVID-19, how healthy have Alabama players, coaches, and staff been during the last 2 months in regards to the coronavirus?
Yeah, obviously I don't want to get into any specific individuals, but overall, I don't know of any organization of any size that hasn't been impacted, whether it's an individual as part of that organization or whether it's a family member or a staff member tied to a family member. I've had a family member in another part of the country. He and his wife both have contracted COVID-19. They're doing fine, which is good. They've been able to recover, but they weren't feeling great for a while, and they were younger than me. So it's something that. I think as this has gone on, there are very few people that haven't known somebody that's been impacted by it. We're fortunate here. Our student athletes, our coaches, our staff have handled this, and their health has been good.
As the SEC starts to take the next steps forward and try and map out what the future could look like, what can you tell us about some of the discussions you and your fellow athletic directors have had, as well as Commissioner Sankey? And what can you tell us as well about the leadership that Greg Sankey has provided the SEC over the last 2 months?
Yeah, Sankey's been awesome. He really has. He's in a really challenging position. He's trying to balance, obviously, 14 schools and their presidents and their ADs and faculty reps and senior women's administrators and everybody through this process. And Greg's a really good communicator, and there isn't a week that goes by where I don't talk to him 2 or 3 times. You got 14 ADs, so if everybody's doing that, that's 40 calls right there. Then on top of the presidents who he reports to, there's another 14 people there, and then on top of that, you got he's talking to his peers in the Power Five. So he's done a really good job of managing the situation. We're lucky to have his leadership. I could tell you from a peer-to-peer, where we talk to our peers regularly. Some of my best friends are peers at other institutions. Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, and I think it's pretty well documented how close we are. Mitch Barnhart, who I worked for 7 years in Kentucky, we talk regularly as well, and across John Cohen at Mississippi State, across the board. And so we're sharing ideas, we're sharing best practices. There's a collegiality here because we are all in this thing together. We need to figure out a way to all of us come back and have that opportunity. And so it's our focus here within our university, within our athletic department is Alabama, right? But then when we get those other calls, we're looking at it, okay, what's right for everybody collectively to give us this best chance to come back. And like I said earlier, sports is such a uniter. It's such a uniter, and we all want this desperately. And I know governor of Arizona decently, Doug Ducey, and I saw yesterday that they're putting out information that some of the major league teams may be able to start having events with no fans. And so, we're all going to be watching that and paying attention to that to see what takes place, because it's, that's something that we're all going to be rooting for success. I've read a lot about what the NBA is doing and seeing baseball in South Korea, and we're trying to learn from each other. So I've got a Zoom call next week with a friend of mine who's president of one of the Major League Baseball teams, and we're going to talk next week and just share ideas and thoughts. That's how we'll get this all together through this collectively. Because if it's good for baseball, it's good for college sports. If it's good for the NBA, it's good for college sports, and and if it's good for college sports, it's good for the NFL. And so we need to be very focused on trying to collaborate wherever we can.
You've said before during Alabama coaching searches, don't believe anything is truth unless you hear it directly from me or the university. Is that also similar for this instance, where fans are really trying to figure out what could be next for Alabama athletics?
Yeah, and I think it's, Roger, that's a good question, and I probably the only original line I've ever come up with is when I said, if you don't hear it from me, don't believe it. When it involves coaching searches, just, and there's strategy on that. We could do one of these about that someday if you want to, but I think I've tried to be visible. I've also tried not to look like, I haven't called any media saying, hey, put me on, I want to talk about something. But I've tried to be accessible, because if you don't, one of the old sayings, if you don't control the message, somebody else is going to control it for you. And while I think there's very few people out there who are trying to be malicious in what their messaging is. I've actually been, my spirit and belief in people, as you see people trying to serve one another through these challenging times, has been very refreshing. And so, but I do think it's important that we, when I saw some of the messaging early on that, hey, we need to move football to the spring or fall sports to the spring, and this was in March, I'm like, golly dog, we barely know anything about this virus. We know very little about the impact on it. We need to listen to the experts, and that's really important. That's not me from a health standpoint, but let's not rush to judgment here. Let's take our time to make it. It's amazing in my life, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with this. When I'm thoughtful about my process, and I'm not in such a rush just to say the first thing that comes into my mind, and that we take our time to gather facts, to gather information, to understand what are the statistics telling you? I got Kyle Daisy who's here with us, and he's, Kyle's our analytics guy, and he's able to look at things from an accounting standpoint, from a number standpoint, provide that information. That's important in decision making. It's not the only thing, but it's important. So let's take our time and let's not rush to judgment. And that's what we tried to do, is to message that, I'm not saying fake news or anything like that, because I think the media's really got an important job. They're trying to do the very best they can. They've got a lot of great people in the media trying to do that on a daily basis. But at the same time, too, let's be patient. Let's understand that, I know there was all of a sudden I don't even know how I found out yesterday, but it's like, oh, I heard we're playing TCU instead of USC to start the football season. That was how I received it. And I said, really? That's news to me. I guess I'm not sure I had missed that contract come across my desk. And so Mike Bone, the AD at USC, he and I have talked throughout this. He said it publicly. I've said it publicly. I know the comments that came out of Los Angeles County yesterday were challenging and concerning for people. They've already walked some of that back here. And so I think that gives you another example. Let's take our time. Let's look at this thing holistically and make the decisions we have to today for the short term, but the ones we can wait on, let's wait on. And there's nothing wrong with that right now.
And there is a lot of attention on the talk of when will football come back. But of course, as director of athletics, you're concerned with all fall sports. What have the conversations been like surrounding soccer, volleyball, all the other fall sports that have fans typically in attendance?
Yeah, when we're talking as ADs, when we're talking here internally, when we're talking about football, we're also talking about volleyball and soccer and cross country and the impact, and when we do that, we're talking academically, we're talking about from a strength conditioning standpoint, we're very limited on what we can do in that area now. We're talking about it from a mental health standpoint. So it's holistically when we talk about those things. But when I say, and I very purposely have said, we want to have football season. I've said that, yes. We want to have a fall sports season because our volleyball student athletes, our women's soccer student athletes, our cross-country kids, they want to be here. They want to compete. And that's why we need to try to find ways to do this as safely as possible to give us that best opportunity to do it.
There's a question from our Facebook page I wanted to get to coming in from Griffin Smith. He was talking about to practice great social distancing. Has there been any consideration about going to mobile-only tickets for Alabama sporting events?
Yeah, we're not done with that yet, but we actually, even before this started, we've had that discussion for a couple of years, to be quite frank about it. And I think this is potentially, please don't say we are absolutely doing it. We are more strongly exploring this than we ever have. We're kind of working through the logistics right now. I don't think it's a big deal if I say this publicly. The last large-scale experience our fan base had with electronic ticketing was the Georgia Dome for the Georgia National Championship game. That was a challenge, and so I think we needed some spacing with that. The technology has really improved in many facets. And so we are digging into that right now as we speak. And I think that actually this gives us another reason to more strongly consider that as a possibility. So we're doing our due diligence, working on all the information, and then we'll make a decision as soon as we possibly can. But I would say right now it's a definite maybe.
And through all of this, and again, the tough times that we are seeing with the COVID-19 pandemic, what has encouraged you the most, especially when it concerns Alabama athletics?
I touched on it a little bit ago, but our kids, our student athletes, our coaches, our staff, there's so many things that they're doing right now that doesn't get attention, that it's just really inspiring. And so one of the things I challenged our staff, and I fall far short of this, okay, but I'm trying to call 3 to 4 people a day. I may have said that on the town hall with Chris Stewart, and just people who have made a positive impact on my life, people who I admire. There's a media member who I've always admired from afar. Never had any contact. He's not a sports reporter. Never had any contact with him whatsoever, other than reading his journalism and listening to some podcasts he's been on. I tracked him down through a media contact I had, and I said, I promise you, I'm not a creeper or anything like that. I just said, your work inspires me, and I think it's amazing. I don't know. His response was really nice. It's just this one. I contact my old high school basketball coach, who I hadn't talked to for years and years, and his son was one of my best friends growing up, and I just said, thank you. And their responses seemed very genuine, made me feel better, through that process. And so I've tried to do it. Again, I fall far short, but at the same time too, I've seen our student athletes do that. I've heard great messages from our coaches who have heard from their kids about the impact they make on their student athletes. I mentioned, I was talking to Casey Wirtz from soccer this morning, talking about her career and where it's going. And, and she's remarkable. She's had a couple of publicized knee injuries, so I can talk about it. And I think she's graduated with her master's degree already. And, she's about ready to set the world on fire. And so I've heard the things that she's working on and things that she's doing during this time. And I think, one of the things I thoroughly believe, everybody wants to feel valued. Every single person. We've all met people in some of the most challenging times of their life, and they still want to feel valued. And so anything we can express and try to do for people to make them feel valued. I'm going to say this in front. Roger Hoover is one of the best young broadcasters out there. He's got a bright future ahead of him. There's a reason why he is now full-time with us. Now, you took over at a very challenging time, Roger, to where we brought you in, right?
That's right.
But Roger's got a great future ahead of him, just like Chris Stewart has with everything that Chris has been through, the impact that he makes and the outpouring of support for him. He like gold. I can go down the list of all the people that, from a broadcasting standpoint, that make a great impact on our student athletes, on our athletic department, on our university, and our community, on our fans, all those things. And so I've seen the outpouring that our staff, our coaches, our student athletes have been doing. A lot of them have been trying to feed people who are in need, and just little things that, some of them have gone and packed lunches for people, help serve at soup kitchens. That's inspiring, because I really do believe, that, people want to do good. And so whatever we can do collectively to spread that message is a great thing for us.
Absolutely, and thank you for your kind words. Before I let you go, I just wanted to touch on one more thing, and that is Bryant Denny Stadium, the renovations that are going on with the Crimson Standard. About a week and a half ago, you were able to take a tour, take some photos that are online on your Twitter account. Just were you pleased by the progress you're seeing at Bryant Denny?
Yeah, we're making a lot of good progress. We're fortunate that we're on time in almost every single part of the stadium, on schedule. Quite honestly, when all this started happening, we were very concerned about materials, and so far, knock on wood, they've continued to come in. So we hopefully that'll be the case, because our goal, and I've said this publicly, I've done some interviews and just said, hey, and I preface it every time, we are going to listen to the health experts. They will be guiding us in our decision making collectively as college sports goes. And obviously leadership with the university, with Dr. Bell, our chancellor, Fess St. John, our trustees, they've been giving us great guidance during this time too. But it's encouraging to see, again, giving people something to be hopeful for. And Bryant Denny, and I actually went and toured here at Malmore, the work that we're doing yesterday. I've took some pictures. I just haven't had time to put it out on Twitter yet. But I'll try to do that either later today or tomorrow. But no, I'm excited about that. Obviously with what we did up at Rhodes Stadium for our softball program, both for our team, our student athletes, and for our fans, is very positive. And I think you're going to see a nice balance of things over at Bryant Denny. Obviously, very student athlete centric for our team, very recruiting centric for our future, and then a number of amenities even in phase one for our general fan base too, with the new video boards, expanded concourses up on the west upper deck, some new elevators, which will help. It's not where we want to be from an elevator standpoint, but it's a good first step for us to help serve our fans in a more efficient manner. So those are all good things for everybody involved.
Certainly good things.
Oh, and let me Coleman Coliseum. I said this is on Jocks FM the other day, talking to the guys. Phase one of the Crimson Standard gives us the opportunity, based on fundraising, based on leadership approval, to give us the opportunity to go to phase two, which is what we want to address with our both basketball programs and our gymnastics programs with Coleman. And I said very purposely, and I hope people will really listen to what I say here, when we introduced this, and I think it was August, it's all blending together. It's August the 19th, I believe, when we introduced this, right? We said it will look different in August of 20, just like it looked different when we started working on it in August of 18. So this is a fluid plan, but it gives us a long range vision, because you got to make sure you honor your past, you got to be very focused on today, and you got to create vision for the future. And so what we end up doing with Coleman, how that looks and everything, that will continue to evolve as we get more information. But that has to be a top priority in what we do, and it has to work financially for what we do as a department as well, as you're balancing everything involved. And we're excited about that for the future.
Well, Greg, thank you for your time today, and really on behalf of everybody with the Crimson Tide Sports Network and Alabama fans that have watched this, just thank you for your leadership during what is certainly an unprecedented time, a time that is hard to prepare for, but we certainly thank you for what you've already done and the steps ahead. So again, thank you for your time today.
Appreciate the time, Roger. Roll Tide, everybody. Stay safe, and look forward to seeing everyone soon.
All right, that's Director of Athletics for the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. We'll have more Quarantine Q&As coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.